All right. Good evening. I will now call the May 9th, 2023 meeting of the Ben Lapine Schools Board of Directors to order. I would like to introduce our participants tonight. To my immediate left, Vice Chair Marcus LeGrand, Director Amy Tatum, Director Keena Chadwick, and Director Shirley Olson. Director Shamiko Montgomery is joining us remotely. To my immediate right are Superintendent Stephen Cook, Deputy Superintendent Laura Nordquist, and Board Clerk Janet Bojanowski. We have Erin Trimble and Kayla Celadon joining us for ASL interpretation, and as always, closed captioning as well as Spanish interpretation is available on our Board of Directors YouTube page. At this point, would you please join me? Remove your hats, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll now move into review of the agenda. Dr. Cook, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
Great. Fellow board members, are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing no changes to the agenda stands as noticed and we'll proceed. We'll now move into item number 4, district recognitions led by Superintendent Cook.
Thank you, Chair Barnes-Delakia. As you know, this is my favorite part of the meetings. This month's Champion for Students Award recognizes an elementary school staff member who has earned the respect and admiration of her colleagues. Amanda Johnston is a Title I educational assistant at Roslyn Elementary School. Will you please join me, Amanda? You can clap. Mackenzie Alexander, who teaches kindergarten at Roslyn, nominated Amanda. She said, Amanda has formed relationships with virtually every student in school. She asks them questions about their lives and actively looks for ways to support them. Amanda also shares student successes with their teachers and always keeps an eye out for students that she can lift up and praise. Mackenzie shared with us. One day at Roslyn, a young student in a real need of positive adult interactions happened to be doing an especially good job of being safe on the swings. Amanda noticed this and saw it as an opportunity. She pointed out how the safe behavior, how the behavior was very safe and made it a huge deal. She told all the other students if they wanted to know how to swing on the swing safely, to watch this student. This student returned to class positively glowing. According to Mackenzie, Amanda does this for all Roslyn students, so it's easy to see why she is universally adored by students and staff alike. Jolyn Ives, another EA at Roslyn, said this about Amanda. She is a champion for our students because she brings the positive energy each and every day that kids need. She can enter any room, give a cheer and a hug, and change the entire mood to a happy one in the room. Many of our kids rely on her each day to put them in the right mindset that they need to make it through their day. I would call her a living, walking guru of good vibes and a professional adjuster of attitudes. That is an amazing quote. Roslyn's principal, Julia Linares, says this. In addition to patiently teaching and reteaching expectations to students in the classroom and on the playground, Amanda empowers peers to recognize and celebrate expected behaviors in others. She chooses students to be her scouts. She gives them way-to-go slips and has them catch classmates being safe, kind, respectful, and responsible. Not only does this help students solidify what is expected at school, it grows students into positive leaders and role models. It's just one of the many creative ways Amanda supports the learning environment at our school. Amanda has been with the school district just shy of 6 years, starting at Lapine High School in nutrition services. She subbed in the district for a while, then rejoined the district at Roslyn Elementary in her current position. She also served as an after-school robotics coach at Lapine Middle School. I didn't know that. and was fortunate enough to be an EA at LaPine Elementary School for the Jumpstart Summer Program. In addition, Amanda also serves on the Roslyn Safety Committee and is part of the new district task force. Thank you for doing that with us on school climate and culture, and is the Oregon School Employee Association representative for Roslyn. Amanda, on behalf of the board and Ben Lapine Schools, it is my honor to present you the Champion for Students Award for the month of May. Okay, sit down. I'm going to have you stand back up in a minute. Formally, Ben Lapine Schools Champion for Students proudly presents on May 9th, 2023 to Amanda Johnson in recognition of the care and attention you provide students at Roslyn Elementary School every day. Thank you for the way you model respect and responsibility and for enhancing the environment in which our kids grow and thrive. Thank you for how well you contribute to our shared imperative that all students feel belong and are all included in their school community. Okay, I'm going to hand her the mic. I'm going to give her this. We're going to take a picture, but she's going to talk for a second first, and then I'm going to ask you all to come up and join us for a photograph, okay?
Thank you. Thank you to everybody that could be here tonight. I am really touched. What an introduction. I consider myself extremely fortunate that in my role in Ben Lapine Schools that I can pursue both my purpose and my passion. And my passion is positively impacting as many young lives as I can and being an advocate for those students that can't advocate for themselves. And I consider myself a product of every single student and fellow educator that I have come across in my path. Without them, this would not be possible. I have a very loving and supportive family, and I've had the support of mentors, some in this room today, and they have encouraged me to continue down this path. And I would not be able to accept this recognition if it wasn't for acknowledging them and their hard work. I am truly and deeply humbled. Thank you, guys.
How about another round of applause for her? Okay, come on up. Let's get a photograph. Come on. Come on.
You have to claim us now.
One last round of applause for Amanda. Thank you.
We'll now move into number 5, which is public comment. The board and district leadership value communication from students, families, and stakeholders. It is a powerful way that we hear from you to guide the work of the district. Public comment is just one of the ways, one of the avenues available. The members of the public are always welcome to email the board, submit thoughts, questions, concerns in writing. And individual board members often offer to meet with people individually by phone, video, or in-person conversation. While we will hear from public comment, I do want to remind the public that this is a meeting of the Board of Directors that takes place in the public, and it is not a meeting with the public. And therefore, the board will not respond to public comment, but will rather direct the information shared in the comment to the appropriate staff member to follow up. We'll now open for public comment. A timer is provided on the large screen to ensure every speaker receives updates during the presentation on remaining time. if the speaker goes over time or if the speaker's message is not in adherence with our policies. For example, being personally directed, abusive, discriminatory, repetitive, or off topic, I may ask the speaker to cease and terminate that speaker's privilege to address the board. At this time, we will hear from Jared Larson. At this time, we will hear from Christina Ebner.
And you can look at that after. It doesn't have to be right now. Okay. All right. Hi, my name is Christina Ebner. I teach third grade at Lapine Elementary. And I'm going to give you some information about ACEs. According to the Center on Developing Child at Harvard University, ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. These experiences can include things like physical and emotional abuse, neglect, caregiver mental illness, and household violence. These are life experiences that happen to children before the age of 18. The ACEs theory was developed by Robert Anda and Vincent Felitti. The study was then conducted by Kaiser Permanente and continues to be used as forefront research today. ACEs are to blame for toxic stress buildup in the body. Toxic stress can be seen in our students through an overactivation of their stress response system. An overactive stress response and the presence of toxic stress in our bodies is linked to poor academic achievement, mental health struggles, and substance abuse, often later in life or while they're with us. Toxic stress is defined by Florida State College of Medicine as repeated exposure to stress without the benefit of a buffering protection of a supportive adult relationship. The higher your ACE score, the higher your probability of struggling with academics and/or having health issues in life. According to the CDC, as your number of ACEs increases, so does your risk for negative outcomes. An ACE score of 3 or more is considered high. With permission, Dr. Larson, our school counselor, has allowed me to share that his ACE score is a 9 out of 10. However, he has the awareness and has had the emotional support in his life to overcome childhood adversities while growing up. The importance of knowing this information is to bring about awareness. As a district, we can support our families through education around toxic stress. We can help to foster and build responsive adult relationships and teaching students and families how to cope and develop the life skills that are necessary to process the ACEs that they encounter and to go on to lead healthy lives.
Okay. My name was said already, but okay. Hello, my name is Dr. Jared Larson, school counselor at Lapine Elementary. In continuation of what Christina had stated, we decided to ask our administration if we could poll our families anonymously with the ACEs study. We had incredible support and feedback from our families. At LPE, we have over 300 families represented and over 400 students. Of the 300 families, we had 157 families complete this survey. The results were thought-provoking and challenging to digest. For instance, 64% of our surveyed families come from a home that have either have parents that are separated or divorced. Another data point showed that 34% of our surveyed families have lived with a family member who is depressed, mentally ill, or attempted suicide. These ACEs we discovered at our school are helping enlighten our mindset towards our students and families with their academics and mental and physical health needs. After reflecting on our data, we wanted to bring this to the district's attention as a possible district-wide assessment that could be used to help provide more mental health services. As educators, we know that data provides proof of need. If we are able to collect district-wide data, this could lead to grants or ways of getting more services for our disruptive learners in our classrooms. We also thought this might be a useful tool for the task force that Dr. Cook has put together. We are happy to share what we have learned through this and the impact that ACEs have on our students and families. The paper that you received has these facts, the ACEs survey we gave to families, and more information if you want to delve into ACEs, as well as our contact information. We encourage you to personally take the ACEs survey and the impact or the privilege that it had on your own life. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right. Thank you both for coming and making public comment. We will now hear from Jackie Wilson, our Student Voice Council Advisor, for item number 6, our Student Voice Council.
Time for that.
Do you want,
That would be great. And
Yeah.
there is a PowerPoint presentation, so not public comment. I think it's just
Sure.
a.
yeah,
Thank you.
okay. We are going to shift some things. Do you want to go to our reports or do you want to? Yeah. We're going to go into we'll just skip and then we'll come back to it. So we'll go to the board chair report. In terms of the chair report, the primary work that we have been doing right now is on superintendent evaluation. We just completed our second of 2 executive sessions at which point we were able to review with Superintendent Cook all of the amazing work that he has done. I'm happy to report that the board continues to be extremely happy with our selection of Superintendent Cook to lead our district, as well as all of his work across areas. A couple of things that I did want to point out, and the first one actually applies to both Superintendent Cook and Deputy Superintendent Nordquist. In the area of academic achievement, we did look at our data, and it is of note that under their leadership, while there was learning loss across our state, our nation, and our district had one of the lowest levels of learning loss in the state of Oregon, and that is due to their leadership. We also wanted to note that Superintendent Cook carries himself and models himself the way that we would want every adult to model for our students. He is smart, he is steadfast, he is also humble and shows a growth mindset. And you could not ask for a better role model than Superintendent Cook. We also are very appreciative of the work that is happening to lift all of our students to be able to achieve the same goals and the same vision that we have of having an equitable and excellent education in our schools. And so just really want to extend our appreciation to Superintendent Cook throughout our superintendent evaluation process. In addition to that, as I have done every month now for the last 2 months, I will make a plea and a reminder to people that there is a special election May 16th. Please complete your ballots and either have those postmarked or dropped into a drop box by 8 p.m. on May 16th. And that special election does determine your representatives for this board on the school board, but also on the community college, which is a great partner of ours, and Deschutes Public Library. So whatever your vote is, you should make sure to use it. And that is all I have on my 2 items for board chair report. Is there anything that one of my fellow board members would like to add? All right, I will hand it over to Superintendent Cook for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Chair Barnes-Delakia. First of all, thank you for those kind words. I'm very grateful and continue to be humbled by the work of our staff in our schools, and that's where the true work is being done, and I'm very appreciative to be a part of supporting that work in any way, shape that we can. I have 3 things I want to talk about tonight in the superintendent's report. The first one is just kind of a follow-up conversation that continues all the way back from February 9th, I believe, was the date that the swatting event happened at Bend High. We continue to meet with law enforcement agencies to debrief that process. We continue to talk about improving our procedures. Since the last board meeting, we've also had 2 meetings, one with Bend High staff to talk about areas that the district and law enforcement and could do a better job, if you will. And Chief Mike Krantz from the Bend Police Department joined me in that conversation with staff. And real and pointed questions were asked of us both and how we do a better job in our process. And I'll just be frank, there's an opportunity for us to really continue to refine training. When a threat is in a school and originates in a school, we do a really nice job of drilling to that and understanding how to respond. When that threat comes from outside the school, we have work to do in that response. And so law enforcement responded in a way that was quite typical for them, which is to go in as quickly as possible and engage. And that's what we are learning is an opportunity for us to continue that collaboration. Additionally, we did that meeting on a Friday. The following Monday, we met with students. And students shared with us their experience. You talk about trauma and you talk about the energy and how those actions, the actions of adults impacted, or lack of actions in some cases as well, impacted students in that experience. Continuing to work and grow from that and using that opportunity to gather that feedback to do a better job of building a system that's going to be better, more comprehensive. And, there's no way to prepare for crisis, but you can train to it. And I think that's part of it, is being able to be capable of adjusting and modifying our actions as a crisis evolves, and it is quite dynamic. And that feedback from students was critical. And just a huge shout out to Mai Perry, who many of you might remember wrote a letter to the editor. She has just been a beacon of maturity and just such a great source of feedback in that process. And I just want to call her out directly because she has really helped us in gathering that feedback, and it's been very useful. Second thing I want to talk about is we had our very first task force meeting on disrupted learning, and we're calling it, I think the name we've decided, we, not me, not us, is Climate and Culture Task Force. We got a lot of work to do. This I fully expect. This isn't, we've got 3 meetings scheduled, I think, this year. I fully anticipate it's going to take us many months, maybe even years. Like, this task force has got a lot of work ahead of it. I'm excited for both the short-term focus and the long-term kind of direction it's going to establish. This group is, I think, excited to stand before you and talk about the work that they're committed to. And so look for us to have members from that committee, 35 or so, is that about right? I think that's 35. Staff and district leaders and EAs and you name it. We've got all representatives across the system in that committee. And the beginning meeting really set a great positive tone for us. So I'm excited to share that that's underway. 2 more meetings before school's out this year. And the last one that I think I want to share about, the third thing I have, is I've been spending some time at Bend Tech Academy, meeting with their site council. I've met a couple of times with their site council, with students. And there's some energy to perhaps engage the board around some conversations around the fact that right now Bend Tech Academy is still classified as an alternative school with the state, and seeking potentially a remedy for that, and creating a better understanding in our community about the fact that Bend Tech Academy is a choice school in our options of high schools, of our 7 high schools, and what would it take for our community to engage in that in a way that, I don't know that stigma is the right word, but many people think of Bend Tech Academy as, they say, oh, you mean Marshall, which has a particular connotation that I think some folks think of as often represents an alternative school where students that aren't or can't be successful in one of our other comprehensive high schools, that's where those students go. And I think it's a very, very fascinating conversation, and they're very passionate and engaged in that, and want, I think, at some point to engage you all with what next steps might be. And so really great conversations there. And I spent much of my morning today there, and you'll see some really cool photos of just super rigorous and engaging learning experiences of kids when we push those out on our Instagram page on Friday. So I want to draw specific attention to that. There's work to be done there for us, I believe.
Superintendent Cook, are you guys considering making it a true CTE hub since we won't be able to do it regionally like we were planning?
I think what is a known is the fact that we've got a leader who has a very, coming in, who has a very vast experience in CTE. We have a focal point there already of CTE, and when you put those two things together, oftentimes you get a synergy that I think is going to be very powerful for that school in the very near future. And this idea of pathways and programs, which already exist there, but how can we expand upon that, and how can we provide those kinds of opportunities for kids to take advantage of that? There's lots of energy there, lots of passion for that, and I'm excited for the future of that school in that regard.
Are we ready for the student voice?
We're still waiting on 2 students.
All right.
Post-sporting events.
That's okay. We will continue. All right. Then I will move to the consent for action agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I will second that motion.
Director Tatum has moved and Vice Chair LeGrand has seconded the motion. Are there any requests to remove anything from the consent agenda? Since there are no requests for any changes, I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Director Montgomery? Aye. Great. Motion passes unanimously. We'll now move into our reports. We are going to hear about our supplemental health curriculum, and our speakers will be Jennifer Houth, our Director of Mental Health and Wellbeing, Dean Richards, our Director of Secondary Curriculum, Instruction and Systems, and Dr. Amy Snyder, Deschutes County Health Services Supervisor.
I'm going to take over for all of them.
Never mind, we will hear from Dean.
Good evening. Thanks for taking a little bit of time. We want to talk to you about some information that's within the board packet for you tonight to talk about some supplementary instructional materials that we're bringing forward today that will really help our health teachers and to really have a broader set of tools to be able to meet the needs of our students. The nature of the supplemental curricula is that these are tools that teachers may be using, but they're not required materials. We do have, within our secondary health system, we have a required Goodhart-Wilcox textbook, but what we found is that textbook doesn't meet the skill-based needs of health instructional standards that have changed since that adoption. So we're continuing to find ways to give more and more tools to our teachers. It really only focuses on the first of the standards, which is that students will comprehend concepts related to health promotion and disease prevention to enhance health, but it misses a lot of the other content. So we want to be able to give more tools to those teachers. So we're bringing forward 29 new different curricula for you and for the community to take a look at. Those are in your packets. 12 of those are around life and career readiness. And 3 of them are about substance use prevention. 6 are for healthy relationships, violence prevention, and human sexuality. 3 are comprehensive curricula, and 4 are additional learning materials. So again, not every one of these curricula are for every grade, but we do have a K-12 representation in this curriculum list. So with the support of Scott Mabin, Director of Communications, tomorrow we will be pushing out these documents for families and community members to take a look at, to review these different curricula through our websites and going out through Family Connections letters and other ways for folks to take a look at that. So what we provided is digital links to all of those materials, including Spanish materials where possible, not because some of these materials are not available in Spanish from a teaching standpoint, but if they have a student interface in the Spanish, then we do have that available on there. And then, so we're seeking input from our community and from you as board members to take a look at those. We will have physical copies here at the Education Center as well. If people would like to do that, to come here and see those as well. And people can reach out to me to be able to come see those pieces. And so we will be looking at that community feedback and bringing that to you at the next board meeting in June when we come back together. So I'm really kind of seeking some input and transparency on all of these materials for folks to take a look at and provide that feedback.
Can I ask a question?
Of course. Ms. Hill. Yeah.
Am I correct then in reading through this that Wayfinder is the curriculum that we are looking at for that K-12 pathway for life and career readiness?
Yes.
Yes,
yeah,
okay.
mhm. And that one has gone through a full adoption process that Jennifer Houth and Stephen Duvall led around that life and career readiness work. And so, yes, that has a full K-12 and again, 25 plus members of our teaching and counseling staff were a part of that process.
And then a follow-up, does the Wayfinder curriculum have embedded indicators for identifying those behaviors of life and career readiness, or is that something that is being built in addition to complement Wayfinder?
Yeah, I think those have, and Amy, maybe now's, so Amy Snyder, she was in on that committee, and so it was one of those where Amy was one of our members from Deschutes County Public Health as a member of that, so she can probably speak a little broader to that as well.
I don't know if I have a better answer. I can't recall right now whether or not there's assessments bedded into Wayfinder. What I've been looking at it for has been for supplemental health curriculum, and so it aligns with our health standards, but I'm not sure if they do life and career readiness assessments. Actually, I retract that. Now that I'm thinking about it, yes, they do assess where students are on life and career readiness because there's a way that Wayfinder suggests lessons and activities to teachers that align with those needs in the classroom. So I had to mentally work through all the things that I learned in that committee to recall that.
Okay, so there are standards, and then there are suggested ways of measuring those, so we do have the indicator piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's multiple standards because it aligns with health and as well as other life and career readiness standards or competencies.
Thank you.
My question is related to cultural sensitivity. Is any of this into the health? Because that does matter for some students, especially some students of color or come from marginalized communities. Is that embedded in this as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
One thing that we are doing with some of our student groups is sharing some of these curricula with them and getting their feedback. So we added students to the feedback form so that we can capture some of their feedback.
So I'm going to recap because this has been coming up a lot in community. So we have a 25-plus person committee who has vetted these supplemental health curriculum. These are now being put out to the public. On our website, there will be direct links, and the physical curricula will be available at the school building for anybody to be able to look at, and then we will be collecting feedback from the public if they wish to make it.
Yep.
Yes.
The only piece is that larger group was for the life and career readiness components. These other ones have come from health teachers and the expertise of Deschutes County Health. So the 25-person group is mainly in that Wayfinder component, but these other tools may be pulled in those tools for teachers to be able to use within the classroom.
Fantastic. So a very nice, transparent adoption process, very similar to what we just did with our ELA foundational skills curriculum.
That's the
Great.
goal.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions?
I just want to thank the chair for the put it where the goats can get it. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, I'm looking at my back row. I still don't see two more students. So we're going to move into the very exciting executive limitations. I am excited because I am a policy nerd. We all know this. So we will move into a discussion of our executive limitations led by Superintendent Cook.
All right, so thank you, Chair Barnes-Delakia. This was actually, this took almost a year to produce. This is a substantial deal. And so if you recall, at the April 11th board meeting, we brought forth a revised set of executive limitations to you all for feedback. And thank you very much, those of you that provided feedback. We've synthesized the feedback, and we've made some decisions on what we think is the best way to incorporate that feedback and then present to you a revised revision that has the following kind of coding in it, so that you have and if you recall, we used to have 13 executive limitations. We have 12 now, but completely reorganized so that they align directly with the goals that we have established. What you'll see is a strategy of codification on these that is, I'll just go through quite briefly. If it's written in black font, that's received no edits. If it's written in blue font, it means that somebody gave us an edit that was either grammatical or a change in language that was didn't change substantive language and so we made those changes in blue. If it's in green font, we accepted language that supported board governance and better defined the intent of the executive limitation. And there were actually several of those that we said, oh, this is actually a better version of this than what we had. If it was in red font, we said, we think that needs to be deleted. And in some cases, well, you'll see there's places where red font was quite a bit. The purple font, and you might want to pay attention to the purple font, because those were places where, based upon our review, there was suggested edits that pushed the executive limitation into a more operational frame of reference, which we pushed on and said, actually, remember the difference between the policy governance model and operational decisions, and we said, we're going to suggest that remain outward. And an important consideration, and I want to really bring attention to this before I go into the last piece, is that in every case where that's done, recall that we put policies that support the language of the limitation as a subtext at the bottom of the page, where many of the language of limitation, of taking that limitation from a governance level to the specificity of how we operate the district, either in a board policy that by law we're required to have board approval on, or as an administrative policy in which those operational maneuverings happen in that language, in that policy. And remember, all of those always go out for public review, just like we talked about with the adoption of the supplemental health curriculum. And then the last thing we just punted on, which is if you see yellow highlights, it meant that there was conflicting feedback given through edits from one or more of you. And we said, we'll let you all decide that. And so we just highlighted those in yellow. And I think there's only 3 or 4 places where that happened. And so there's not a tremendous amount. And so what we would like is, what we're requesting and recommending is from you all, is to muck around in this for a minute, accept, reject, do whatever you want with all of those suggestions. Any place that there's yellow highlights, make some decisions. And by the end of today, we would love to have what we consider a board-approved first draft that we could push out for public feedback sometime in the next few days, if we could get that far. And so I kind of staged that conversation, making sure you know and understand those 5, was there 5 or 6? 5 areas in which we did those things. And so you have a hard copy. There's also a digital copy in your system. Any questions before I stop talking?
I will make one comment. When I submitted, as the author of EL 13, when I submitted my revisions, in the original draft that we received, they took everything from EL 13 and put it in verbatim. And so when you see some red and green, oftentimes I was just trying to refine what they had put in there to better fit the EL that it was now included in.
Let me be clear, Steve, do you want us to go through them one by one? Or do you want these electronically for us to comment on? Or what's the procedure here?
I think the first one is, well, it can be done any way that it works for you all. I think the biggest point of conflict for us, I think, is the yellow highlights, where there's essentially conflicting feedback around a particular spot. That would be a starting place. I think maybe we work it backwards. The blue font is the least controversial. Well, black font means everybody's pretty satisfied. Blue font means grammatical change is probably not a big deal. Green font is better suggested governance language from you all. Red font is deletions, which most of the time we're very supportive of deletions, especially when we talk policy governance, because that's high level. And so I think working our way up, start with yellow, then go to purple, then go to red, I think on each one makes the most sense.
I'm going to suggest we go through them one by one. So I will open it for discussion on EL 1.1. I will lead that in 4C, the comma after that needs to be taken out. I, when reviewing this, understood the question of whether the yellow is operational practice. At the same time, I think that it is important that the culturally responsive practices and diverse student needs, viewpoints, and interests is reflected somewhere in this academic piece. And so I don't want to lose that language because we condensed quite a bit from EL 13 into that one bullet, and it lives there. So if there's a way that we can change that so that it doesn't feel operational, but still reflects the intent of ensuring that our instructional program reflects those pieces, I'm open to suggestions.
Go ahead, Amy. Oh, I was just going to say I'm also in favor, Melissa, of keeping that in there and trying to make it so it's not necessarily operational based, but also providing guidance.
If there's a suggestion that the academic team would want to make, I think we're open to that. I see in item B, it says learning activities that emphasize. If it was something that was learning activities address, yeah, I'm just not quite sure how do you want to adjust that? But I think that the board would like to keep the pieces, the elements that reflect the need to have instructional practices that meet the diversity of our student body, both in terms of culture and in terms of neurodiversity.
I would suggest that the first 1, 2, 3, 4 words of that comment just be deleted, and that 4E reads as addresses individual learning styles, blah, 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 for the rest of it. I think, I have no idea what an asset-based orientation means. I think that just means learning materials.
It means not being deficit-based, so
Being deficit
this
based, okay.
kid needs this because they don't have, but rather seeing kids' diversity as an asset in their learning.
Oh, now I understand. Thank you.
And we are not opposed. Like, to be clear, we are not opposed to the language as it's written, if that's the inclination of the board.
I like Shirley's recommendation. Let's add that.
It needs a tiny wordsmith for parallel construction, but
Yes,
yeah. Can we
And
give that
learning
to you to
activities
figure
that-
out the parallel construction?
Yeah. On
learning activities would complete that then, correct?
Instructional practices. Address individual learning styles,
Good.
cultural relevance, and diverse student needs, viewpoints, and interests.
Yep.
You're good at that.
We can, I'm right there with you. I know exactly what you're asking for.
All right, let's move to 2.1. Is everyone okay with 2.1, even though there's no yellow?
2.1 is good.
Great, we're going to 3.1. And the suggestion here is basically to stop the sentence, put a period after all, insert all, and then just have a period after students, which I would be in favor of, because as we know, protected classes constantly changes, and so just keeping it as all students would probably be cleaner.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the sentence as it is above is inclusive in language.
I have one comment. The word public is not used within the content of this EL. Naturally, it's assumed. It is inclusive. Students, parents, guardians, families, and the public. I would like to see the word public added into somewhere that just makes it clear that we do have policies that tell us how we are going to treat public. And I have a following later on one of the other executive limitations that kind of follows up on that. But I think public should be spelled out somewhere.
Shirley, do you think that's in point 6 because it says involve diverse stakeholders? So should we just be more explicit and use the language
I'd like to
public
see the
there?
word public in there.
Yeah, but that seems like the one that would be easiest to add public
To add it to?
What if we just put a comma, involve diverse stakeholders, comma, including the public, comma, in an advisory capacity?
That'd be great.
I think the other place that it could be added is in the first introductory sentence, so that it just mirrors the title and says, values each and every student, family, staff member, and the public, and is committed to.
Either way, thank you.
I think it's an and. Four point one has no yellow, so we will move to 4.2. Ooh, and there's purple for us.
Our position would be that the green accomplishes all that is necessary, and the purple could be deleted without losing the integrity of the executive limitation.
But is the purple part that we're eliminating, is that saying that the teacher does not have the ability to have someone help guide, especially if they're a new teacher? You know what I mean? A little bit. Because I'm reading that as a buddy system, but I know we're trying to get rid of that piece, but
That would still be captured in our mentoring program. So
Okay.
we have processes that would ensure that that happens anyway.
right.
And
Okay.
so, for all practical purposes, the green captures the overarching statements of that. And so our position would be that how we're delivering upon those things live in our procedures.
Sorry, is there a direct reference to administrative policy that speaks to job descriptions, et cetera?
If you notice on the back of that page, it links to our policy regulation G, which is for personnel, which speaks to some extent to that. If it does, whether or not it captures exactly how that's being delivered, that lives in procedure, which is, much more prevalently changed. And so I'm not sure how that's called out. Here's what I'm afraid of. Part of what we would be doing potentially when we talk about cuts, we don't cut by procedure, we would cut programming, or we cut staffing that delivers in programming. And if we ever had to be in a position where it lives in policy how something is going to go, then that limits our ability without changing policy to meet our budgetary expectations. So
Yeah, I would agree C is clearly operational. And I think the buddy system is way too specific to be part of the executive limitations, so I can accept deleting that purple text.
Yeah, I can as well. And I believe that the pieces around the diversity come up later in the executive limitation.
Can I ask a question real quick? Students, do you understand what we're doing right now? Okay, just want to make sure you guys have an understanding, because I know we're going to be doing a bunch of talking, but ultimately we want to let you know that we're trying to make sure we set the guidelines and stuff that, that guards us as a whole district. Just want to make sure you guys are clear, right? Teacher comes out of me.
I am fine with deleting 2C. I believe that the high quality and diverse workforce is covered in 2A.
I agree, seems redundant.
Is there anything else that warrants discussion? Are we clear? Yep.
yeah.
Great. We'll move on. EL 4.3 is fine, 4.4 is fine. 4.5,
Hold on, 4.4 has purple.
it does? Ours is black and white.
Okay, so that's interesting. Hold on.
Number 2?
Number 2.
Okay.
Is theirs? Is it marked out? Is it strike through? Okay, so in
It's
mine.
out, but it's gray.
So here's, for some reason, it just didn't get printed. That page didn't get printed in color, but 2 is purple. So this is, we would suggest that this is moving, 4.4, moving into governance, and we would suggest deletion of this one.
For me with this one,
Operations.
I think one thing I think we need to address is accessibility for students who are disabled, because I think we have some issues in terms of looking at some of the access to them to be able to get in without having assistance from a teacher or another student to be able to do this, because there's a student I know in particular that has access issues. They had to get a fob to be able to get in, but it took a lot of time. It almost took like 6 months for the student to get this. And sometimes that they don't have, especially in inclement weather, they didn't have the ability to get into the school. So I'm trying to figure out how we can maybe
So that's protected in policy and in
Okay.
procedure already.
All right, just want to make sure.
Yep.
All right.
All right, can you explain that or expand on that, the protected and
That that accessible,
yeah,
that are essentially, I think what Vice Chair LeGrand is saying is that this particular bathroom was locked.
uh-huh.
And it is, that's actually already in policy and in procedure that they are accessible and that they are not locked.
But they're locked.
That's correct. That's a violation of policy.
Okay.
And so that would, so there's not, that's an administrative move then at that point. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So it's still a violation of policy. It's just, it's going to be governed and addressed through policy rather than the executive limitation.
Yeah, maybe I should clarify, and I'm not trying to get too pedantic or even too, just because something is written in policy or in procedure doesn't mean it's always being followed everywhere across the district, which is part of our responsibility to go follow up on when those issues come up that way. So are we good on that one? Okay. Okay, we have a similar problem on 4.5. So we have two spots that are in color that didn't print off in color. The first one is 2. The last 5 words of sentence on number 2 is actually after district vehicles should say, and align both with the sustainability plan, which is in green. It's supposed to be green.
And also, if you look in your board book, it comes right up. Yeah, yeah.
And then the last part is on 4. So, and remember green is language that we accepted that said makes
Right,
better sense as a governance statement. So we would suggest keeping that. The last 2 words of sentence 4, which says including wheelchairs, is also, we believe, that's purple, we would say is operational. Because that's excessive, like we're bound by discriminatory practices on that would prevent us from dealing with that. Okay.
Then it comes back, the color comes back.
Great. 4.6, there's a blue, green and red, so no discussion. 4.7 is green. 4.8 has purple.
Yeah, this is a communication piece, and this lives in policy. This also lives in our strategic planning. And we're, as you know, this year we did a real intentional push to move into as much systemic release of all information from the district in Spanish. This continues. At some point, we'll have technology and resources to be able to expand languages. We have many languages spoken in this district, so I don't believe it's necessary to have this part that's already called out in multiple languages. And I'm not sure we would know how to measure when is it most effective and when is it time to move it. Portland Public Schools, I think I was talking with Guadalupe, they push out 6 languages and they have over 80 languages spoken in district. And so you're always chasing this. And so from our perspective, this sentence ends at district stakeholders.
Am I correct on that point, Superintendent Cook, that 10% is the threshold that the federal government places for 10% of enrollment requires translation in that language? Because I think I'm saying that because I think we're ahead of the curve in terms of that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's good feedback.
All right, 4.9. And I'm assuming 5 is struck because it's in operations.
Yeah, this is an operational maneuver. It's part of the strategic initiatives in this particular plan.
All right,
I have a comment.
yeah.
This is going back to my issue of public. I would like to see a statement specifically about access, both during school hours and after school hours, referring to one of our investigation reports. And secondly, I think that there's an issue during school, but I also would like that to address the use of facilities by other agencies and/or public, such as Bend and Park Rec, because there are differences in how the access to facilities is handled.
Can I suggest that we work on policy language for something like that? Because it lives.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, I think that's actually.
Okay,
As we do partner agreements with many of our community partners that access those facilities, I think it does live in many of those already. I can tell you that just like the conversation earlier, that what may exist in the agreements and the policies of how that goes
may or
isn't
may not
always
always
how
be
it's
followed.
administered too. So I'm glad to dig into that.
okay, so it's probably either in facilities or community relations, or maybe both.
And/or in the MOU agreements that we have with those
okay,
partner
with
agencies as
partners.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And what about communications? Remember, with the pandemic, remember we restricted a lot of different things like the tracks and stuff like this. Is that in more policy, or is that more based in communications in terms of transparency?
It depends on which part we're talking about. So when we talk about access to facilities, one of the things that, and there's really, this is a much bigger conversation. Let me slow down, I'm getting ahead. Like, one of the things that we did was when we started bringing volunteers back into our schools, we purged the entire system and essentially started from scratch and did background checks on every single volunteer so that we essentially were clearing the table on all of those. Additionally, when we started allowing facility access use and rental and agreements, then every one of those MOUs went through a process, or those partners went through a process with either taking existing MOUs and updating those MOUs, or starting to allow access in for like teams to use facilities for practices and things like that. All of that process happened last year in a very structured, and we have an entire department that manages that work for us. And so I think what we're hearing is ensuring that we have policy language around how those relationships exist when they do, and what those expectations are when people are availing themselves of the use of those facilities. And quite frankly, we want that partnership. So, we treat these are the community's facilities, right? And so, absolutely.
Fantastic. Then we, I believe, are finished with our executive limitations discussion. We got the students, we lost the advisor.
Oh, no. Oh, shoot.
We're gonna stall for a second here. That was a great discussion, everybody. So what I understand then is that these will come back now with the final revisions through our standard policy procedure, two-step procedure, and that they'll be available for public comment as well. Is that correct?
So we will make these modifications and get these pushed out for public review. I don't know, I would guess within the week, probably. And then barring incidents of comments that send us back to the drawing board, we would, depending on comments, the public review we get, we may be incorporating some of that, and then bringing back for your consideration. And if, depending on how that goes, that would be at June 20th, is that right? We would bring it back to you for your consideration and approval on the June 20th board meeting.
Great, thanks for that clarification. Look at that timing. All right, we are gonna now move back to item number 6, our Student Voice Council update, led by our Student Voice Council advisor, Jackie Wilson, and a fabulous group of students.
Perfect, and I'll grab the clicker. Thank you for your patience. High school students are very busy. If you did not know that, So I'm the staff advisor for this wonderful group of students that was formed in January and really just kind of getting the foundation, which is really great. We've been meeting monthly, and I think we're going to be really ready in the fall with some new folks, and they're going to be really ready to work with not only district leaders and the superintendent, but the board as well. They want to learn more about these policies and how to really make our schools a really great inclusive place for them. The 4 students that you'll hear from today, again, thank you for your patience, are the leadership team, which is really great. They've kind of self-formed and we'll start working together so that we can create a structure for their leadership team that really fits their strengths as well as provides pathways for their own personal leadership development, which is really exciting. And without further ado, I will pass it on to them. Hold on a moment. Did I press anything? Thank you, Joel. Ms. Honey.
Good evening. My name is Honey Walk. I'm a junior at Mountain View. I was excited to be nominated for this role because it gave me an opportunity to show my voice and the voices of the peers around me. I want to make our schools a stronger environment and have it like people really want to enjoy to come to our schools. As we have been developing this council since February, one of the exciting things we are working on is creating an engaging way to connect to the student body. This is a first attempt at our logo where it's like a work of progress. The leadership team will work through several logos and bring them to the council to vote on. We also have been working on creating a mission. The Student Voice Council will integrate students' perspectives into decision-making at the highest levels of the district to create positive changes for student learning, district policies, and school improvement. The mission, the Student Voice Council will integrate student perspectives into decision-making. I feel like I'm just rereading the same thing, sorry. I'm gonna recollect. But as we have been meeting and working over the last several months, we have worked through some general goals and visions for this council. We will collaborate on critical issues and help guide BLS leadership on projects and programs that affect youth today and in the future. Second, we will work together to assess current district practices, engage our school communities in deeper understanding of current policies, get feedback from the diverse student body, be ambassadors for our school, and develop leadership, communication, and advocacy skills. Third, we will have an opportunity to work directly with the superintendent, board, and district administrators on solutions for the issues most important to our students. Fourth, we will be able to collaborate on and provide feedback on school improvements.
Hey, my name is Wesley McGovern. I'm a junior at Summit High School. I'm excited to be a part of this council because I truly believe that there is an absence of communication between student and administrators. Just a second ago when you guys were talking about the bathrooms being locked, what you said was going on, I heard Stevie kind of go, that's not what I'm seeing. And I think that's something that we all really want to bring to the table, is to bridge this gap, that we're all really appreciative of everything that you all do to make sure our schools run well. But at the end of the day, the people it affects is us, and that can sometimes play out in a very different way. And we were nominated for this council through our school leaders and teachers. Our introduction to the council was on February 9th, and all 20 of us met for the first time. We learned more about one another. We met some of you all, did some team building activities, took pictures, and really just set our goals and expectations for what we wanted to accomplish. And we discussed important issues facing students and worked through how to provide authentic student voice and perspective in district policies. Dr. Cook and board members connected with us so we could learn our role and we could begin to discuss how we could work together. And when asked about important issues facing students, themes that emerged were sense of belonging or lack thereof, mental health, especially coming back from COVID, students still feel that, and students not knowing how to act or interact with others in a positive way, diversity, racism, bias, and how incidents at schools are dealt with, and students feeling valued as an individual and as a student in a greater community. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stevie Irvin,
and I'm a sophomore at Realms High School. I'm excited to be part of the leadership team and the Student Voice Council because I want to make real changes in my community, and this seems like it's going to give me that opportunity. The council met in March. We met here in the boardroom in order to familiarize ourselves with how board meetings are set up and organized. In this first meeting, we were tasked with discussing and learning more about the honors diploma, specifically what we thought about expanding the definition beyond capstone classes to include CTE and the arts. We had some engaging discussions and collected ideas from our fellow students in our schools via a Google form to assist the district leaders while they're looking at this change. For the board meeting in March, myself and Honey attended in order to see firsthand the flow of how the meetings go and to gain an understanding for the role of that SVC leaders will soon play in having a seat at the table. From this meeting, I learned a lot about the bias reporting system and how it's being implemented in our schools. And I wondered about how more information about it could be made clear to my fellow students, and that came up in discussions later with the council.
Hello, my name is Essie Bowles. I'm a freshman at Summit. I am committed to the Student Voice Council and the leadership team for the next school year because I want to learn and be able to advocate for the students in our schools. As a council, we want to be able to give feedback from the student perspective before changes and policies are shifted. For example, one of our meetings led to a discussion about the bias training that was pushed out in school this year. The council members dove into how the training was at each of our schools. We want to be able to provide feedback and support to make the execution better next year and to help make important trainings like this more meaningful for students. Our foundation is strong and we are ready for the fall when we can work more in collaboration with district leaders and assist them in positive changes for our schools and students. Our goals for next year are to create a system where SVC leaders known in our schools ensure all students can share their ideas so we can truly be the voice of our prospective student bodies. To work regularly with district leaders and board members so that we can give authentic student voice to changes in schools and how they are executed. To have annual projects where we have power and authority to create positive impacts for schools and students.
I was getting them candy, which is why I was gone. They're all blood sugar low. With that, if you have any questions, I'll make sure to pass on to all of the board members and the mission, kind of our vision and goals that have been created, as well as these goals for next year that was created kind of at that last meeting. And we really look forward to starting right off in the fall, working directly with you more and seeing you on a regular basis.
And I would just add, if you're really kind to these people, when they get their shirts or hoodies or logos and all this stuff made, we might even allow you to have one.
I'll make sure. Awesome. And then actually I have one question from the student.
Hello, so at my school, it's at Mountain View, and when I walk around the halls, it kind of gives more of like a jail vibe. Like we don't have very many windows, and the color of the walls is very like dark. And so I have been working with some of my teachers, and we have like purchased plywood to like make some more murals in our school to brighten it up. And I was wondering if there's like any way we can get like funding, or like if there's a way we can even just repaint the schools to a different color. I've already done some research on like colors that like stimulate the mind and that kind of stuff. So I was looking into either light blue or light yellow. I didn't want to do blue because we didn't want to resemble Bend High colors, but so we ended up on doing light yellow, and so it just it basically creates productivity, and it just like stimulates the mind and really makes people want to work. And I just thought that would be great for our school, especially since we don't have windows. And if I was wondering if there's any way we can implement that.
That's such a great segue to policy. And we actually had a big situation with this at Miller Elementary. So I'm going to hand it over to Superintendent Cook. But what you led with, the plywood and the murals that are affixed, adheres to the policy.
Yeah, so one of the things, do you remember we were in the news because there was some, oh yeah, of course you remember, everybody knows this. So there, we had policy that was, we're gonna paint over art that's on the walls. And so it was a tough situation. We all learned a lot from it. I don't know if you're aware of this, but lots of good has started because of that conversation. And we've got this, and I'm gonna use this because I don't know if we're calling it anything different, kind of this beautification committee kind of approach where we're actually working on developing partnerships with local artists to actually go into our schools and put custom art into our schools, specific with conversations with school people, like students, like talk about what their needs are. And just a few days ago, the new unveiling of the artwork that went into Miller, which was the place where we painted over it, was unveiled. And so what I would say next steps would be, as this process is underway, that every single one of our schools should be involved in this. And we building connections with local artists, first of all, so that we can get fresh, original design work. And maybe even some of our students could participate in this, but so that it doesn't, remember, our schools are schools for 50 years. So we don't want to get out of those lanes in that ownership and stewardship that we have with those schools, but that doesn't mean that they have to be sterile and bland colors. And that's the process I would like us to consider engagement on. I think it's a fantastic idea. I think it's a great way to live in policy, but also meeting the needs of the people that are like, I'm in this building every single day and I'd like to look at something other than those walls.
I have a question for Ms. Walk. Is this one of your campaign promises to all the students for your student body president? Just great job.
I'd just like to say thank you so much. You guys are awesome, and we have super high expectations of how you're going to help us, but I'm sure that your expectations are really more important, and I think you've already spoken to several of them by your actions and by the procedures that you've set in place for the group. Thank you so much, and you have no idea how much we value what you are doing. So, thanks.
Yeah, I think we were just like having side conversations as you were talking, because from access to restrooms to, of course, you guys are the ones that will tell us how to make our bias lessons better and more engaging for students next time. It's just really exciting to see your wheels turning already about how you can help us improve. And then those areas that you identified, Wesley, that students were naming are directly related to what we want to be working on. So I cannot wait to partner with your group. Thank you.
Looking forward to some design sweatshirts. I need a new hoodie.
All right. Okay. Then, thank you. We'll give you a round of applause. Yeah. All right, sorry, we were talking about getting to watch kids grow up, and it's like yesterday when some of them were kindergartners. All right, we will open it to board comments, starting with Shirley, and board comments are optional.
Well, I've commented a lot tonight, but here's a couple fun things. I just want to acknowledge that the Education Foundation Trivia Night was an absolute incredible experience. It was fun, it was productive, everybody there had a great time, even when the lightning started. But it was great, and I haven't heard the final results yet, but at our next foundation meeting, I'm sure they will share that information. I'd be happy to bring it back to you. Secondly, I had the privilege of attending Les Miserables at Mountain View High School, and my granddaughter is in the set crew. And for those of you that know what Les Mis is all about and understand how important the setting is, and when you see the barricade that they built and climbed all over during the production, it was absolutely amazing. So congrats. I can't help but tell you that I want to go to every single musical that every high school does because they're just amazing. Thanks. Share that, honey.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you to Christy Ebner and Dr. Larson on sharing about the ACE study. And yeah, and also I'm wondering, is there room for, or are there plans for the Student Voice Council to join that climate culture task force? Is that already in discussion?
I don't know that we're going to have them join, but we are definitely going to use them as a source of feedback and looping them back into those conversations. Yes.
Cool. Yeah, so thank you all also for coming and presenting. Your ideas are, I mean, it's just the freshness of them, I think, is contagious in a good way. So thank you all for being here. And the last piece I just wanted to share, last Tuesday, we had our monthly alliance meetings, and we're gearing up for prom. A lot of students are really excited about that. And yeah, they presented their logo that they created, which was very cool. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I also want to thank our public commenters tonight. ACEs is something I am very passionate about and interested in. You know, my score is higher than 3, and when we're dealing with disrupted behaviors and problems learning, we can't not address trauma. You know, from my perspective in primary care, I see every day how trauma plays out in health outcomes, and we know it affects educational outcomes. I just had a patient today who, from talking with her, I was like, oh, I think she probably has a history of trauma. And I asked her, and she said, thank you so much for asking me. And that was a completely appropriate way to do so. And I think we need to be better about talking about that and addressing that. So thank you so much for doing that work. I know in La Pine, it is a higher burden than in some of our other schools, but we absolutely, as we're talking about improving inclusion, wellness, belonging, academic foundation, we have to address the trauma that our students and our educators are coming to school with. So thank you so much for elevating that conversation.
I just want to congratulate the students from my lead classes. Their finals are coming up, and they're doing an outstanding job in those commitments. Today, I was able to do it at Caldera High School, and the students gave me some civic engagement programs that they're working on. One was bias incidents came up as well. They want to have like a consistent training on it from a student perspective. They really brought it up, and I think it'd be great. I can definitely send you the report. The kids did a phenomenal job of doing it. They had some QR codes where students can do an advisory, as well as go to their parents to be able to help understand better what bias incident reports. The other one I really loved that the students talked about was the affordability of playing sports. And they want to have a fundraiser at Caldera to be able to continue to raise funds to help people who can do the travel piece, as well as being able to just participate in general, because they know a lot of students are prideful in terms of not wanting to ask for those funds. They did a great job of presenting where they're going to tape teachers to the wall, and you can buy tickets to do it. And I think it's pretty cool. But then, I know I said it too. I was like, that's kind of funny, but at the same time too, I understand why they're doing it. But at the same time, what they mentioned too was that they would love to get some sponsorships from the different community people to be able to help with this, because they know it's a major issue for people to be able to participate in sports. and they just want to be able to have that access. And like I said, I just thought the students did a wonderful job in presenting today and just giving us an understanding of what they go through. So I want to thank those students for that as well.
Thank you. Whoops, I think I just wrote on myself. Um, I have a few things to report. First, in terms of work I've been able to do over the last month, or since our last board meeting, a couple of different pieces. I was able to visit the COIC Bend campus. If you don't know, the Bend campus serves about 80 students at a time in our community. It's one of our alternative learning options, and they work with the students primarily to complete their GED, but also have the option of doing credit recovery and returning to their home high school. And so as we look at making sure that all of our students have a passion, purpose, and plan for their future, a next step, it's a critical component for those students who are no longer in our schools. And that partnership I truly value, and thank the staff for having lunch with me. Second, I was able to do some interviews with students. So I interviewed with groups of 7th and 8th grade students at High Desert Middle School and at Cascade Middle School on things like increasing pay for essential workers, addressing student mental health needs, and also addressing harassment and bullying, especially targeted towards LGBTQ plus students. And so I really want to appreciate those students for their thoughtful questions. They were preparing proposals for policy that they're going to bring to us. And I also want to appreciate their teachers who are elevating student voice and saying, you guys have power, let's go do this. So thank you to all of those students. Finally, thank you to Shirley Olson and the Education Foundation. I was able to go to trivia night for a little bit. It was a packed event with a lot of people really supporting our schools. And so such a valuable partnership. And then last, I've been able to talk with tons of voters because I have been walking 8 miles a day on average, going house to house and getting feedback from people as I run for reelection. But I just really want to encourage people out there to come, to share your thoughts. I learn something new with every person I talk to. I'm looking at our boardroom tonight, and I did a quick count, and we have approximately 40 empty seats. To attend a board meeting, all you have to do is walk in the front door and come on upstairs. You can, if it's something that we expect a lot of people, you can reserve a seat ahead of time if you want, but please join our board meetings if you're interested. In terms of public comment, we had 2 speakers tonight, so there was certainly a lot of time. If people want to make public comment, there is no shortage of time for public comment. Please come. Please share your concerns, your questions, your ideas. We'd love to hear from you. With that said, a few appreciations. Oh, okay. I'm not done, though. I'm going long tonight, sorry. With appreciations, first, it's Teacher Appreciation Week. Woo! So a huge appreciation to all of my son's teachers, but to all the teachers in our district. Thank you day in and day out for all you do to help raise the children of our community. Second, I want to appreciate the Budget Committee for guiding us through another successful budget adoption, review and adoption. And then I also want to thank our representatives from our Student Voice Council. I am so excited about the work ahead. And then finally, I have a personal appreciation to Superintendent Cook, who was kind enough to write one of my recommendation letters to the University of Oregon. I believe in lifelong learning, and I believe in modeling for students, and I am pursuing my doctorate and was accepted. So thank you, Superintendent Cook, for helping me take this next step in my own educational journey. And now, Director Montgomery.
No comments tonight.
Oh, Director Tatum has an addition.
I just want to add, it's also Nurses Week, so let's all thank our nurses, particularly our school nurses.
So true. All right. Our next meeting is a work session scheduled for May 23rd, 2023, and our next regular business meeting is scheduled for June 20th, 2023. So with that said, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.